Hey everyone, welcome in. Today we're diving straight into the heart of South Africa's tech scene. We're taking a close look at Minister Sally Malatsi's first 100 days as Communications and Digital Technologies Minister.
It's been a busy 100 days.
It has, and it's easy to hear that and think, okay, government stuff, not exactly a thriller. But honestly, this is way bigger than just politics. We're talking about how AI strategy is being shaped in a major African economy right now and the impact that could have on the entire continent.
And it's a fascinating time for it. Minister Malatsi is really trying to balance these immediate, pressing needs with his long-term ambitious goals for the country.
It's a tough balancing act, and we've got a ton of material to unpack, reports, articles, even a pretty strongly worded open letter from tech CEO Willy Seyama, all focused on these first 100 days. But one theme just jumps out right away: internet access.
Yeah, I'd say that's priority number one for Malatsi, especially getting those rural communities connected.
And it's interesting because the numbers we have right now, 75% of South Africans are online. That sounds like a win, right?
On the surface, sure. But
flip it around. That's 15 million people still left behind.
Exactly. And that's not just a statistic, We're talking about a massive economic and social barrier. Those 15 million people without broadband access are essentially shut out of the digital economy, struggling to access basic services. I mean, it impacts every single part of life.
It's a huge problem, and it seems like Malatsi gets that. He's pushing to make internet access as essential as water or electricity.
He's really going for it. Did you see that part about reclassifying smartphones?
Oh, yeah, wanting to make those essential goods. I mean, imagine the government stepping in and saying, look, these aren't luxuries anymore. Everyone needs access to the digital world. That's a game changer.
Oh, absolutely. It's about leveling the playing field, giving everyone a chance to participate. But you know where things get really interesting is...
Okay, you've got my attention. What's the catch?
Well, in the middle of this whole internet access push, right in the thick of it, Malatsi releases this working document about a national AI policy framework.
Wait, hold on. He's worried about people being able to afford data plans, and he's already got AI plans in motion. Isn't that a little, I don't know, backwards?
I can see why you'd say that, but you have to remember, developing a solid ethical AI approach, it takes time. It's not something you can just throw together overnight. You need meticulous planning, tons of collaboration, a clear vision for the future. And by starting early, even while he's tackling these immediate urgent challenges, I think Malatsi is sending a really strong message. South Africa's serious about this. They want to be a leader in AI.
So it's like he's saying, yeah, we need to get everyone online now, but we also need to be prepared for what comes next. It's about laying the foundation, building a future where everyone can benefit from technology. Speaking of AI in that working document, what's the plan there? What's he actually proposing?
It's not quite a detailed roadmap just yet. Think of it more as a starting point, a blueprint. It outlines the government's broad objectives for AI, things like ethical development, inclusive growth, using AI to tackle social challenges, that sort of thing.
So, still a bit vague then.
Yeah, light on specifics for sure.
Which is where the working part comes in, I guess.
Precisely. The whole point is to start a conversation, to get people talking. It's meant to be a collaborative effort, a jumping-off point for discussions with experts, industry leaders, the public, everyone. They want to build a national consensus on how AI should be developed and used in South Africa.
I can see why that would be important. You don't want to rush into something as transformative as AI without considering all the angles. But it does sound like this working document is more about setting the stage than actually giving us the whole play-by-play. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's laying out the broad strokes for sure. But the details, the specific action items, the nitty-gritty of how it's all going to work, those are all still being worked out. And this is where things get particularly interesting, especially when we start comparing South Africa to other African nations.
Oh, how so? You're going to have to fill me in on this one.
Of course. So while South Africa has been laying this groundwork, getting their house in order, so to speak, other African countries haven't exactly been sitting on their hands when it comes to AI.
So are we talking falling behind here? Is South Africa getting left behind in the AI race?
I don't know if falling behind is quite right, but they're definitely not in the lead. I mean, look at this open letter from Willy Seyama.
Pretty scathing, right?
Yeah, he doesn't pull any punches. But he makes a good point. He points out that you've got all these other African nations, Senegal, Rwanda, Egypt, Mauritius, Nigeria, Kenya. They've already got concrete AI strategies in place, and they're not just talking about it, they're actually doing it.
Yeah, that's got to sting a little. I mean, South Africa is often seen as the economic powerhouse of the continent.
For sure, but sometimes being a powerhouse can actually slow you down. Think about it. You've got all these established industries, complex regulations. You need to get a lot of people on board before you can make any big changes. But Seyama's argument, and it's a compelling one, is that this delay, even if it makes sense, it could really hurt South Africa in the long run. It's like he's waving a big red flag, like, hey, the AI train is leaving the station. Get on board or get left behind.
Okay, so that's a pretty vivid image. So let's say Minister Malatsi wants to get South Africa on that AI train. What needs to happen?
Seyama actually lays out a few key action items in his letter. First and foremost, he says, finish what you started. And he's talking about this whole digital migration thing that's been dragging on in South Africa for years.
Oh, don't even get me started on that. It's like the never-ending story of South African telecoms. What's the holdup anyway?
Oh, man, it's complicated. There are a lot of moving parts here, but essentially it comes down to this. They need to shift from analog to digital television broadcasting.
Okay, and that's important because
it frees up valuable radio frequency spectrum. Think of it like prime real estate for wireless signals. The more spectrum you have, the faster and more reliable your internet can be. And right now, South Africa needs more of that prime real estate to boost internet speeds and capacity.
So finishing this digital migration thing would be like opening up a whole new neighborhood for digital development.
Exactly. And what Seyama is arguing is that once that's done, they need to license that newly available spectrum to mobile operators ASAP. But there's a catch.
Let me guess. Lower data costs.
You got it. He's all about making sure that this expanded access actually goes hand in hand with affordability. After all, what good is being connected if you can't actually afford to do anything online, right?
Makes sense to me. But it sounds like digital migration isn't the only thing on Seyama's to-do list for Minister Malatsi. He also brings up the Copyright Amendment Bill, which is another one that's been stuck in limbo for a while.
Yeah, that one's a whole other can of worms. Copyright law and AI, it gets complicated quickly.
It feels like opening Pandora's box.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's an important can of worms to open, It's about setting the rules for how AI can use and learn from existing creative works. Things like books, music, art, all of that.
Because these AI systems, they learn by analyzing massive data sets of information, right? And that often includes copyrighted material. So how do you balance protecting artists' rights with, not stifling AI innovation?
Exactly. It's tricky. And even Seyama admits that the current bill might not have all the answers when it comes to AI-generated content. But his point is that it's better to have something in place sooner rather than later. Even if it's not perfect, at least it provides some legal clarity, some guidance in this rapidly evolving landscape. It's about finding a way for AI and creativity to coexist and hopefully to thrive.
To coexist and thrive, I like that. So that's digital migration, copyright. What else is on Seyama's wish list for Minister Malatsi?
The big one. Actually fleshing out and implementing that national AI strategy we were talking about earlier. Remember, right now, it's just a working document. Seyama wants to see it become a concrete roadmap. Clear guidelines, actionable steps, measurable goals. He wants South Africa to be proactive, strategic about how they approach AI.
So less talk, more action.
Exactly. Having a plan is great, but execution is everything.
But what does that actually look like when we're talking about something like AI? I mean, it's not like building a house. It's like building a house, right? You need the blueprint, the materials, the skilled workers, and the right regulations to make sure it's all safe and sound.
That's a great analogy. And just like building a house, building a thriving AI ecosystem requires careful planning, collaboration, and a long-term vision.
So where does this leave South Africa? They've got the foundation, they've got the ambition, but it sounds like they need to move from blueprints to bricks and mortar, so to speak.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating to watch. South Africa is at a crossroads. And the decisions they make over the next few years will have a ripple effect, not just within their own borders, but across the entire continent.
Okay, I'm starting to see why this is a much bigger deal than just one country's tech policy. But what does this whole mean for someone like me or our listeners? We're not all AI experts or government ministers. What's the takeaway here?
The takeaway is that we're all living in a world where technology is advancing at an unprecedented pace. The choices made by governments today, whether it's in South Africa or anywhere else, will shape the future we all live in.
It's like we're all part of this massive tech experiment, whether we signed up for it or not.
Exactly. And South Africa's journey, with its successes and its struggles, offers valuable lessons for all of us. Take the internet access issue, for example. It's easy to think of it as a purely technical problem, just a matter of infrastructure. But as we've seen, it's deeply intertwined with social and economic equality. It's about ensuring that everyone has the opportunity to participate in the digital world, not just those who can afford it.
It's about making sure that technological progress benefits everyone, not just a select few. It reminds me of that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Exactly. And that brings us back to AI. South Africa is still figuring out its AI strategy, but the fact that they're having these conversations, grappling with these questions, that's something we should all be paying attention to.
Because the decisions they make could have implications far beyond their borders.
Precisely. And that, my friend, is what makes this deep dive so fascinating. It's a glimpse into the future, not just for South Africa, but for all of us.
As Minister Malatsi navigates these complex issues of AI, internet access, and technological innovation, we'll be watching closely, learning from their experiences, and hopefully finding inspiration in their ambition. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this together. To our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you a new perspective on South Africa's tech scene and the global implications of AI. Keep exploring, keep questioning, and as always, keep on diving deep.